3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you for joining us this afternoon. You're going to be updated or addressed rather by Detective Superintendent Nicholas Pedro, the officer in charge of the crime unit. And we're going to get an update on the situation yesterday where a replica firearm was seized following an incident at the car park there on Cavendish Road. And you're going to be somewhat surprised at how realistic this weapon looks and the danger that these individuals could very well have put themselves in. Mr. Pedro.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, members of the media. Whilst I can't discuss the specifics of the case, I would like to address you, as Gary said, with regards to recent events where we have seen people gearing up in public and brandishing what appear to be very realistic firearms. As you may be aware, some weeks ago, people were seen prowling around the City Hall in the city of Hamilton, and in yesterday's incident, 2 men were engaged in a public car park by police as they were on a motorcycle wearing masks and dark clothing, with the rear passenger brandishing this item, which I'll show you very shortly. Our officers are, of course, trained to the highest of standards, but in these kinds of scenarios, officers must make split-second decisions based on very fast risk assessments. The carriage of such an item that I will show you without requisite permits or permissions puts people at risk, very bluntly. Whether this be from members of the community who perceive a threat themselves, the persons actually carrying these items, or indeed the police officers who have to make split-second decisions on whether or not someone's life is at risk, including their own. So now I'm just going to show you 2 items, if you will bear with me. The first is an M4 carbine. This is issued to members of the Bermuda Police Service and is a fully functioning weapon, as you may or may not be able to see. This is the item that was seized yesterday by officers as they engaged the men in the car park on Cavendish Road. As you can see, it's very realistic, with the only real distinction being this item on the end, which has the appearance of being a suppressor, which can be fitted to some real weapons. As you can see, there is very little in terms of difference between the 2 items that I've just shown you, and it really just goes to highlight the challenge that officers must make when they encounter people that engage in public with such realistic looking items. Nothing we are saying should take away from a person's right to engage in creative and artistic endeavors, but the reality is that the Firearms Act can and does provide for possession of imitation firearms under circumstances to be a criminal offense. We would strongly recommend that anyone that is considering engaging in the filming of movies or social media creations to seek proper legal advice and also get the requisite permissions beforehand. Yesterday's incident and the one at City Hall has the potential to put people at very real risk, and we simply urge everyone to apply common sense before going armed in public, where there are very real concerns around firearms in the current gang and gun environment, and strong legislation preventing possession of firearms and indeed imitations. So with that, I'll ask if there's any questions.
Are you saying that you don't believe there was any malicious intent?
As I said, I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the case. It's still very much under investigation. I'll just simply point to what we were faced with yesterday in terms of the seizure and the situation where we were not forewarned as to any type of filming or anything happening in regards to that.
Can you tell us if there were how many armed officers there were on the scene?
Off the top of my head, I don't know how many actually responded to it, but officers did respond to that and effected the arrest of the 2 men in possession of this item, wearing masks on a motorcycle. And as you know from many previous press conferences that we've held on very real shootings and people arrested in possession of firearms, that is typically the MO that we see, where persons are 2 up on a motorcycle brandishing a firearm.
What happens from now?
Well, the matter is still under investigation by our Criminal Investigations Unit, and they will be liaising with the Director of Public Prosecutions as to whether or not charges will be laid.
is anyone still detained at the moment?
2 persons are in custody, yes.
There were other people on the scene. I assume they're being questioned.
Yes, that's all part of the investigation, and that will all be borne out once all the statements have been taken and all the facts are discovered.
It's just a bit of a surprise, actually. I mean, in the United States, these guys probably would be dead by now. But there's other people who were on the scene. From what I've heard, it seems like they were also involved in whatever was going on.
Yeah. As I said, I don't want to iterate the circumstances under which the officers found themselves. Suffice to say, they were confronted with persons on a motorcycle carrying this item, which, having to make a very quick and fast risk assessment as to what they should and could do. They obviously made the right decision, thankfully, but as you can see, that does not come without its challenges when people have to make very real, very quick decisions.
Was there more than one phone call that you received to this incident?
We are aware of some reports, but I can't speak to the number of calls that were received.
Deputy Superintendent, morning. Could you just clarify what the law is regarding the legality of imitation or replica firearms? Are they?
Yeah, usually the law provides for using an imitation firearm to commit an indictable offence or resist arrest. So there are circumstances that provide for possessing an imitation firearm to be illegal. In this instance, this item is what's classified as a laser tag type weapon, but nonetheless, as you can see, it would certainly fall into the category of being either a replica or an imitation based on first blush. So
it would be illegal to bring that into the country?
I won't comment on that at the moment.
Have there been any occasions before of laser tag weapons? I mean, it's a big sport, isn't it?
Yeah, typically they don't have this type of appearance. Traditional sort of laser tag, that for those of you that have kids, those type of weapons don't generally have that realistic type of appearance. This is certainly new for us, certainly here in Bermuda. So again, it's how the item is used and how it is deployed in public that is the concern.
Was there any other items seized? Were there any other items?
There were other items seized in the course of the investigation.
Anything that you could divulge?
Not at this point. Okay.
You said, Superintendent, they were wearing masks. Were they like COVID masks?
No, these were masks of a I guess concealing type nature, so that you could not see the person's face fully and properly. Yeah.
So this is the second incident recently with imitation firearms. Have there been any other situations in recent history in regards of imitation firearms being confiscated by the police force?
Yeah, I mean, we seize imitation and replica firearms quite regularly, not always under these type of circumstances. I think the point that we wish to get across today is that, the use of these type of items in the circumstances that our officers found themselves in yesterday could and can go horribly wrong for the people that are doing that without having the requisite permits or permissions. Movies and the like are made all the time, but certainly not without notifying the proper authorities and having permissions to use these imitation or otherwise weapons in public.
So this is basically a similar incident to the first one then?
We believe so.
And so, I would have thought there would have been some consultation with this group of people after the first one.
Well, we certainly did have that reach out following the incident at City Hall. Whatever happened yesterday, we were not informed of.
Any other questions, members of the media?
No.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.